Chadoop. There we go. Hey guys, my name is Kim Guillory. I'm an integrative life coach. I am based in Louisiana. And my guest today is Rebecca Tervo. She is a certified coach. And we are going to talk about mental and emotional wellness. We're going to talk about suicide or life after suicide, after being affected by suicide. Super excited to have you here. I've already told you, like, I've got a huge passion about talking about this because where I live at, we have a 28% suicide rate, like suicide death rate. And it's been our mission to teach coping skills and awareness. And like, I believe it's just a matter of not knowing where to go, not having the tools. It wasn't available before us. Now we have these amazing tools. And I believe you're on the same mission as I am to get out there and share with the world that we
Yeah,
have ways to, not necessarily that we need to save or change anything from happening, but there's resources. So
yes, for
let you
sure.
tell a little bit about yourself and your story.
Okay. So I'm Rebecca Tervo, and like Kim said, I am a certified coach. I used to call myself a grief coach, but I found what I really am passionate about is helping people after, like, move forward from the grief. So not necessarily processing as much as moving forward. But that's not to say all the skills that I've learned in my life, because my son died by suicide in 2012 and he was 17 years old, and we had no idea. So do you want me to tell you my story right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I didn't know
Yes, for sure.
if it was just a short introduction.
No, this is actually your space
Yeah.
to let people hear what
Okay.
you've been through and the possibility of where they can get from where they are today.
Yeah. So I'm so passionate about that part, because my son died in 2017 and he was in 2012. Sorry, he was 17. It was really unexpected. And I think probably many suicides are unexpected, probably most of them, but it's not like we ever saw that there were any problems. There wasn't any depression or that we knew of. Let's just say that we knew of. I mean, I don't think we have all the answers ever after they die. You can't, without talking to them and asking them why and what was going on. But our son was a straight A student and he had a lot going for him. He was extremely intelligent. And we always thought like he'd be some like brain surgeon or rocket scientist, or literally he was really intelligent, and he was very passionate about learning. He just like read and read and read and learned and researched and read and learned. In his short 17 years, he did a lot of that. And so I couldn't understand what happened. There were no signs. And so what happened with me is I kind of fell into this depression where I didn't like I took a lot of guilt. Like I didn't know what I did wrong. I was always a perfectionist before this. I was a CPA, and I felt like our life was going great. We had 4 kids. My husband and I had professional jobs. I felt like we were successful. And I thought I did everything, quote, right. And then this happened, and I just felt like, what? Like it totally shattered my life, and I didn't know what to do. And it totally changed my perspective on everything. I did spend a couple years kind of wallowing, like I thought, well, maybe life isn't happy. Before this, I'd been into personal development, a lot of like happiness and affirmations. And I was always a personal
Good.
development guru type of person. I loved like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar. And, I used to be all in that. And after this happened, I kind of threw it all out the window. I'm like, nope, none of that works. I can't
Oh.
believe that life is so terrible. And I kind of got spiraled down into this place, you know. You want me to
What was your primary thought with that? You said that that's all like not
Yeah, I
reality.
just
That's
like
like some kind of fairy tale land, some kind
that
of
must have been
wonderland.
because I used to say affirmations on the way to work. I used to teach my kids affirmate. Like I used to think that, you know, happy thoughts, positive feelings, life is happy. And then this happened and I thought,
Interesting.
nope, I guess that didn't work. I mean, everything I had done, I reviewed everything I did in my
Right.
life and I'm like, well, what did I do wrong? Something is wrong, and something's wrong with me.
It had to
And
be me. Is that what you were
yeah,
thinking? It had to be me.
that it had to be me. Like, I'm the mom. And how could I not have known that my son was depressed? That was a thought I had a lot. Like,
Yeah.
how could I have not known that he was depressed? Was he depressed? Like, I had a lot of confusion. I didn't even know what that would look like if he was depressed. So Yeah, we had never experienced suicide in our community as far as I knew. Like, I didn't know anybody personally who had died by suicide. I didn't know anybody that I knew that knew of somebody that died by
Wow.
suicide. And so it was just a shock, like, what is going on? You know, um, our community was shocked. And the school principal told me, we've never had a suicide in our school before, which I don't really believe him, but that's what I was told. Because I was like, well, how do you usually handle this? We've never
Wow.
had this happen before. I'm like, I'm not sure that I believe that. But, you know, it was just something people didn't talk about. You know, it didn't feel like I couldn't even find anybody to talk about with it because it was like, nobody would talk about it. So,
And this
um,
was in 2012. So this was
12,
8 years ago.
yeah. And I mean, we are in a secluded, like, I live way up in upper Michigan, like by Lake Superior. So it's way north, very rural, very small towns. The biggest town in the whole upper peninsula of Michigan is like 15,000 people. You know, it's like a very rural, lots of land, lots of trees, lots of hunting and fishing. What, you know, it's that
Yeah.
kind of space. And so we're in very small communities. We don't have a lot of resource, like we don't have access to like the bigger city,
Right.
you know, resources. So I feel like in that way too, maybe we were secluded from any kind of groups there might have been of other parents who had lost children to suicide. There just wasn't that around us, you know, and that felt very isolating to me.
How was this
Um,
for you and your husband?
for my husband and I, it was horrible. We almost got divorced, and I would say that I was the person who thought divorce is wrong. We would never, you know, like I felt like a very religious person. Like God said we should be together forever. But this was the first time ever in my life. We had been married 20 years at this point, and it was the first time we ever even thought about, oh, maybe we're not supposed to be married anymore. It was really difficult for us.
Is that because you were handling the grief different and the blame different, or the thoughts that
Yeah.
went, like, how was he viewing it? Because you were seeing it was, oh, my fault. I'm the mom. I should have known better. I should, like, if anyone would have known, I should have known. I carried him. I've like, right. That's kind of what
Well, and then,
us moms
and
think.
so I guess I had some of those thoughts, but I also, I think, just was confused about how to move forward and I had other kids. I had three
Right.
other kids living at home. How am I supposed to be a their parent? So I think I was more involved in myself, like questioning all the
Hmm.
stuff. Whereas my husband was just so angry at like the school, for instance. There were some things, you know, about the school. Like he was on this fact finding mission. You know, he's going to go figure it out why it
Right.
happened. And
Right.
it's somebody, he wanted to blame somebody.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody out there to blame. And so I was like sad and inward, to turn it inward and depressed. And he was out like so angry. And neither of us could really see the other point of view. It was
Yeah.
just really interesting, you
Grief
know.
is interesting in general. I
It
mean,
is.
it's the weirdest thing. It's so surreal. You
It
kind of go
really
in
is.
and out. My take is there's no way a human brain can actually process real grief. We would blow up. Like
Yeah,
our brain would blow up and our heart would blow up. Like
yeah,
if we truly felt the depths of what we're going to feel in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years it takes to,
yeah.
right, do it. I don't think we have the capacity to handle the the depth.
Which is why I think, and I tell people, the first year for me felt like I was in a bubble. Like, I, how would you say it? It was like there was this coating around me. It was fluffy, sort of like an out of body experience feeling
Yeah.
where you're not, and what the doctors and stuff say is your body is being protected. That's
Right.
your body's way of protecting you from feeling all of the things at the same time. There's no
I
way
don't
you
think we're
could.
capable as humans. I don't think we're
No.
capable of it.
So you're
I'm right
kind of
there
in
with you.
shock, right? It's like you're in shock, and this is your body's way of protecting you. So you don't have to process everything at once.
And isn't it weird that you can't trust yourself? Like you
Yeah.
can't trust where you're at because you don't know when it's going to come out. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like grief has a life of its own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It just shows up whenever.
Yeah.
It was an interesting thing.
Very
But
humbling.
yeah. Yeah.
And so he went to like the blame. We got to figure this out. He's problem solving, right? Let's make sure this doesn't
An
happen again. But that is a man's role.
engineer. And yes. He had, I think he actually had a lot more self guilt than I did. Like I processed through that pretty quickly. I'm like, well, it wasn't my fault. I know this, but he didn't. That kept with him. Like he was supposed to know something. Like Trevor had talked to him a couple of weeks before he died about religion and what was that about. Like he
Mm.
got very much, it was his fault. Like he should have known something. He should have seen it. He should have. Yeah, it was a fascinating, experience. If I look back, it's fascinating. At the time, it was horrible.
Oh God, yeah. I really think we're protected. Exactly what you said. It's like this bubble and this,
Yeah,
like you kind of can't, you don't really know what's going on, and we're in so
yeah,
much dissonance. Like, I'm saying just in grief in general, guys. Regardless what
yeah.
the grief is, there's a dissonance of like this happened, this didn't happen. Then 3 months later, we know they're still not here. It must have really happened. Like I don't know. I'm not sure if it happened. Right?
Oh,
There's this
right. You
this
still think
constant.
you're going to see them. Like I always said, I used to think, oh, he's going to come bounding down the stairs any minute. Like his same things, you would be used to seeing him every day. And it's like, oh, no, he's not. And I'd have to keep telling myself, no, he's not. But it's almost like you're in this weird third world. Like, is this a dream? I don't know. It's just, it
It's
is a
like
weird.
dimension hopping. It's like
Yeah.
you're in these other
Yeah.
worlds. It's not
Yeah.
reality. It doesn't feel real. Nothing feels real.
No, it
It's
feels
and there's
very
and then you have this
unreal.
numbness. So you're
Yeah.
disconnected. Your mind and body are disconnected. And so
Yeah.
you can't pull it together. And then here's this. Wait a minute. We're supposed to like feed the kids breakfast. Like
Right.
we're supposed to. Wait a minute. I remember like experience one particular time where I was experiencing grief, and I was like, what the heck? Like, what are y'all doing on Facebook? Like,
Yeah.
why are these cars passing? What has happened? Don't
Yeah.
y'all know something has just happened? Like, there's
I
this
know.
weird,
Mhm.
I'm not relatable anymore kind of
There's this
experience.
one thing that really changed for me. I was really involved in our church community. I would, in our church community, like the ladies would work in the kitchen, and we'd have meals every month, and we'd all be in the kitchen. And one thing I could not handle anymore was going in there and listening to the normal gossip. It's like, did
Yes.
you hear so and so, blah blah blah? And I was just, I wanted to, I remember thinking I just wanted to crawl out of my skin and scream, does anybody
Yes.
remember that my son died by suicide? Like it was the weirdest thing. Like they're just talking
Yes.
about this normal stuff, and I couldn't handle it. And I have never, since that time, I've never gone back to the normal kitchens thing. And it's
Yeah.
just something that I decide I don't need to do anymore. But it was just so weird. Like a lot of things changed.
It's a lot like what people are experiencing right now with this virus. If
Yeah.
they haven't had what you had or what I had, or someone who's had
Yeah.
this severity of, I'll say it's our reality of mortality.
Yeah.
What is your more, it's like it's different for everyone. So what is your reality of mortality? Once you've experienced this closeness, then it's kind of like just another thing. But
Yeah.
for someone who's never experienced it, and all of a sudden every single species on the planet could be affected, suddenly the antennas are up, right? Suddenly the whole world is on board.
Yeah.
And so if
It's
someone like us speaks up and we're just like, oh yeah, it's just the virus, it's kind of like the dead, they're like mad at us, right?
I
Just like you
know.
felt in the kitchen.
Yeah. No, and I know I'm just like, well, the worst thing that could ever happen to me has already
Happened.
happened. So
Exactly.
none of this really, I don't have any emotions about it. I'm like, yeah, here's just another thing. How are we going to get through this now? It doesn't really
It's so interesting.
bother me.
It's grief
Yeah.
is the craziest thing, and
Yeah.
how um like it's there's something that the lens, it's like our lens is different afterwards,
Yeah. Your
if
perception of life, right? The same thing, lens perception. Yes. It just totally changes, totally
so
changes.
what about your children? How did this so you kind of
Yeah.
took us through what was going on with you and your husband, but what about the siblings?
We had some really tough times, especially with my daughter. So my oldest son was 19 at the time, and then Trevor died. He was 17. So they were 2 years apart, but they weren't necessarily close brothers, but they were 2 years apart. But then I had a daughter who was in middle school. She was in seventh grade, and then one who was in second grade. And so the one I feel the most affected by it was the seventh grader. It was just like she looked up to her brother like he was her,
Yeah.
she looked up to him. He was like her hero or something. And she had 4 bad years, I would say. Like I felt like they were really a struggle. If I look back on it, like it was such a struggle. And I remember thinking, is she ever going to graduate from high school? And oh, what if she, and it was the weirdest thing when she turned 17.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember thinking, oh no, we have to be super vigilant. And
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
like
Yes.
4 years after he died, she turned 17. And I was like, now I'm again, my antenna's up like, oh, she's 17. Is she going to make it to 18? Like it was the weirdest thing.
This is the
Um,
samskara. Samskara is an energetic, it's a scar. It's an emotional
yeah,
scar in the cellular body, in the energetic cellular body. That's like something
yeah,
has happened. You should be aware now. You should watch, right? It create these are wounds. Like these are
yeah,
things that are inside of our body. This is what everyone is
yeah,
experiencing with the pandemic is all of these unresolved wounds, right?
yeah.
Is it still there? It's very,
Interesting.
very interesting. So she was, so that was almost through her high school years. You said
It
four
she was
years.
in I remember she was in 11th grade when I started seeing like, oh, I think she's going to make it. Like it was, I
Mm.
mean, all of a sudden I saw she had friends coming around again. And not that she hadn't had friends, but there was so much drama and, fighting about her going to counseling and she has to go and she doesn't want to. And like, there was just a lot of drama going on, and when I find, and the moral of her story is she is graduating from the University of South Carolina in linguistics, but she's going to be commissioned into the US Navy as an officer in a couple of weeks, which I'm sad because we can't go to it. They've canceled all the
Right,
public
right.
ceremonies, but the only time in her life she'll ever actually be commissioned. But she's going to be going to pilot school. So she went from this person that I didn't know what was going to happen to her getting a full ride scholarship for the Navy, becoming an officer and going to pilot school. So she'll be a pilot in the Navy, which I was like, for me, the transformation of that, like for her to take what happened to her, and it has made her so much stronger, in my opinion. Like she can
Yeah.
get through anything. That's what she's just decided. Life is short. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to go out there and take the biggest risks and try the biggest things. And
Because life's not guaranteed.
yeah, she
Life's
has
not
learned
guaranteed.
that at an early age. And so I feel like for her, I feel proud for her that she was able to take that and
Transform it.
yeah, move forward like that.
As did you.
As did I, which I'm actually, if I have to tell you the one driving reason as to why I did what I did was because of my kids. For sure, my daughters. I was like, oh my gosh, I have a 13 and an 8-year-old, and they cannot like think of me for the rest of their life. Like mom was just so depressed all the time. She was never able to get over that thing. Like I really wanted to show them that we could still have a good life. They could still have a good life. I could still enjoy the life with them. You know what I mean? Like I felt so passionate about that part. That's what drove me forward. Otherwise, I don't know. You know what?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to find a reason is my thought.
for
You
sure. Even in
have to
business,
find a
you
reason.
have to have a why. You have to have a strong
Yes.
why to keep
You
going.
have
So
to have that foundation.
you had the fear that like, oh my God, this could happen to her too.
Yes, I
You
was
had that
really worried.
experience.
Yeah.
And really it was possibly, I surely don't know, but possibly like she was experiencing grief in her own way, right?
Yeah.
Her perception changed. So when
Oh,
you think
very.
about it in that way, a seventh grader and everyone's at school being silly and her world is shattered and her king is
Yes.
gone and her for sure it's hard to relate. Like it's seriously hard
Very
to
hard.
relate when someone else doesn't get the grief because
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do to shake it off. Grief is grief. Like it has its own time, it has its own passage, and it has its own healing property. Like what
Yeah.
comes out on the other side of it. I mean, we all still remember where we were for 911. I remember exactly where I was when I saw Princess Diane's car crash into the tunnel. Like it
Yeah.
layers that
These
scar.
When Michael Jackson died, I remember where it was. It's these weird things that happen like at specific times in history. And we just like attach that. It's an
Yep.
experience in our brain and the emotion that comes with
They
it.
are little traumas though. They are
Yeah.
it creates a
Yeah.
traumatic event in the body and then it's
Yeah.
our role. That's why we're so lucky to have these tools for us
Yeah.
to know now, oh wait, this is sadness. We can feel this. It's okay. It's there's the disbelief, there's the dissonance. Okay, if we can just there's the doubt, there's the
Yeah.
anger. Oh,
Yeah.
here's the layers, right? This is when we blame
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
Like all of that, we
Yeah.
just kind of sift through in and out, in and out, in and out. And it sounds like she processed she took her time and went through
Yeah.
that change and then came out probably a different person, I would guess, from what you're
Yeah. I
saying.
think she's much stronger than she probably would have been if she hadn't experienced it. not that you wish your kids would experience it, but I'm like, well, I guess that's what happened for her, in her life.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, it was very scary as a parent, but I think for her too, like, I think she recognizes how powerful that is and that she actually feels the need to help others too. She has been that support system for so many people that have had mental problem, anything, like they're having emotional issues, they have relationship problems, and they're coming to her to tell her about them, because guess what, she's been
She
through something
understands.
pretty bad, you know
She
and it's so
understands.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And so then we're talking about like 4 years later, she's better. You and your husband are better. The other
yeah.
kids are better. Like everything's kind of coming together. And you're like, okay, I'm going to have to do something here. Like we can't keep this going, right? Like this is not what
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I think I started though probably in the third year. I started going, I'm going to figure something out. And I started reading a ton of more books again. And I kind of got interested again in life.
like in
I was like,
positivity and
yeah, I was
affirmations.
like interested. I was like, hey, actually, maybe if I do go read some success stories again, because I know that there's always trauma going on in the world. There's always people that go
Yeah.
through things. And I just needed to fill myself again with that. Like, yeah, these people went through things and they got to the other side.
I wonder how it would have been had you not had that foundation. Because, you're saying how you threw it all away and like to heck with
I
you. That didn't
know.
work. But I bet
That
it
is an
was,
interesting
I bet it
question.
was a big, I bet it was a big part of why you were
Yeah,
able to come back. Because you had that,
yeah.
that creates a Sims girl also.
Okay, but I remember telling a friend, I was like, I miss myself so much. Like, I was
Mm,
grieving the loss of the person I was
you
before
were
he
for
died.
sure. For sure.
I remember I was so positive and I had all this outlook and goals. And for a while, I couldn't think anything about goals. I'm like, "Ugh, I don't even
So,
care.
so
You
can
know?
we sit here for a second because there is someone listening to this.
Yeah.
And I want to see if you can describe what it was like when those 3 years where you didn't recognize yourself,
Yeah.
just so that maybe they can detect, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And there is a way to change it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I felt a lot of thoughts that I was like, where did that come from? There were these weird, like I had weird thoughts and I was constantly afraid of something else happening. So I was like hypervigilant, like high anxiety,
Mhm.
hypervigilance, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And just the doomsday thoughts
Yeah.
all the time. And it was just really, it wasn't me at all. And I'm like, where are these thoughts coming from? They kept coming in like something's going to happen. I was afraid for my daughter to go for a walk. I'm like, no, somebody's going to kidnap you. Or, I mean, it's the weirdest, like,
Don't you think that was the primal brain on defense? Like,
yeah, it
hey,
was
wait,
just like,
don't you
yeah,
remember something bad can happen?
I know, like keep trying to keep us all safe. I was trying to control the world.
Yeah.
So I felt like really controlling, like, no, you can't do that. And we can't, none of us can do this ever again. And I didn't want to be around other people for a while. Like that was weird because I'm a very social person. But it just felt like nobody understands me and everything they say is wrong and they don't get it. And like it was that
Yeah.
judgy thing too. Like, I don't know. They don't get it. Like,
Yeah. It's almost like, I'm in
yeah.
this hell and you haven't been here and there's no way you can understand.
Yeah, it
It's
was
almost like
really
this like I got to
hard.
stay in this, and I'll use the word victim, but it's
Yes,
without meaning it in a negative way, but it's that
exactly.
role of something has happened to me and it's not fair and you don't get it and I'm just going to be in this
Oh,
island.
talking about that, I remember sitting in church and seeing people with all their little kids lined up next to them nicely in a row, being
Mm.
all happy. And I remember thinking, you just wait. Like, this is not me at all. You just wait. There's something going to happen to you in your life, and this is not going to be happy ever after. I just was so angry for a
Yeah.
long time. I was just pissed off at the world and I was angry at God. Like, that wasn't normal for me either.
Right.
But I was really angry and
We
I
were
told
taught
myself
though.
I wasn't angry. I wasn't angry. No, I wasn't, but I was.
We're taught though, like you think about it, you come home or you're like, no one wants to play with me, and you're telling your mom that, or so and so did this to me, And the first thing that we're taught is like, yeah, well, and then they find something negative about them, right? Yeah, but her parents are this, or they try to make them look like we're
Yeah.
kind of taught that to do that. Like
For sure.
it is kind
We're
of there.
conditioned. Yeah.
And I remember like moments of it's like you don't understand because you have it all. You still have it. Like you have no idea. Like it's so
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
I think it's just that it's I really think it's the primal brain that just won't let it go. It won't because I the way I felt is like if you drop that, then you're gonna feel all of this again. So keep it up, keep it up, keep it going, keep it protected, right? Because
Well,
anger
yeah.
is better than pain.
Right. And it does separate you from people too. So it's like when you're vulnerable and you show your pain
Yeah.
and you talk about it, it brings people in and then you get closer. So it's almost like, no, stay
Not ready.
away. That's kind of how I dealt with it. Like, stay away. I don't,
Yeah. It's almost like
and
capacity not to heal, like the capacity not to
yeah,
believe in like something could be better again because we don't want to get our hopes up, right? So it's like we just
yeah,
kind of refuse the healing process
yeah,
because I don't want to ever experience this again and not
yeah.
realizing that because we're stuck in it, we're experiencing it every day, every day, every day.
Right. And I have to say, my relationships changed. Um, I had heard that before. People say, well, your friendships might change and whatnot. It was true for me. Like, I don't have the same friendships that I had before. A lot of my friends fell away, and that was fine. But it was hard. I had to grieve that loss too, because I lost a lot of friends. Only have one sister. I have three brothers and one sister, but I only have one sister. And I felt like our relationship is not the same anymore, and that made me sad. But I have learned that, oh, but they didn't really change, but I changed,
Mhm.
and because I changed, maybe I'm at a different place where it's just not the same. And yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's
I'm
fun.
going to question this because it's so common. But for some, it's so uncomfortable because they're
Yeah.
like they can't handle the pain, right? How they would have felt
Yes.
if they were you, so there's this. I don't really know how to act around, and so it makes
Yeah.
it even more isolating because they
Yeah.
won't mention his name. Like I've said Trevor's name, I've said it to
Yeah.
you, right? It's like
Yeah.
you, but the other person is
Yeah.
trying to imagine how they would feel, and so they're not saying it right, and
Yeah. Right. They stayed away. Like, they weren't sure what to
it's
do, what
uncomfortable.
to say. What could they say? There isn't really anything they could say, but it's just like, could you be there? I don't know. Some people can't be there. That's just what I've
It's
noticed.
It's almost like, could you be here and not say anything?
Yeah, could you just
That would be the best.
be here?
Could you just be
Just
here and
hang
not say
out. Let me just talk if I need to talk. Like, I always tell people, what you really need is a non-judgmental space to talk in. Like, you just need someone to listen. That's all you need. But people feel the need to like try to solve it somehow. It's
like your
not
husband looking for the
solvable.
answer?
Yeah.
Suicide's
Yes.
not logical.
Yeah.
You will not
Yeah.
find it in your mind, and the
Right.
mind will go stir crazy trying to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. I have come to so much peace with all of that, and it's it just feels like I've gone to a different level with life and how I understand it now. And I think now people who used to be in my life just don't understand where I'm at all. They're like, I don't get it. I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to get it. But I feel like I've expanded my understanding. I've gone to that post-traumatic growth place, which is something I like to talk about. It's like, you can actually blossom out of this trauma and create such amazing happiness and joy. And it sounds weird, depending on what place you're at. But for me, that is what has happened.
Well, I'm curious. When you say that it sounds like, do you think that's conditioning? Like we're not supposed to be
Mm,
happy once we lose a child? Like that's kind of we're
mm.
conditioned to believe that? Like
I
your children
Yeah,
should never go first, so you
yeah.
should feel sad forever. Like I'm asking this just
Yes.
out of
And some people have come to me and said, some of my clients are like, I feel guilty if I'm
yeah.
going to be happy. Am I allowed to be happy? And I'm like, well, of course we're allowed to be happy. But that is a hard thing to get past, especially I think as moms. It's like, there's something we missed, or we did something, or I don't know what it is, but there's this guilt, that we
This
didn't,
yeah.
our child is not here anymore. And what's that about? you know.
This happiness recovery, we can call it, like whether it's from divorce or losing a parent, losing a child, anything,
Yeah,
I think it's conditioning. That's, of course, that's a thought. It's just my thought.
the
I've
thought.
experienced lots of grief in my life. And so this is, very common. So let's just talk about when you had the awareness of like, okay, things have got to change. You found coaching, you started like getting back into your books, you figured it out. So take us through that journey so we can leave on that note. So it's great
Well,
to share all of it, right? Because we're all
yeah.
in different stages.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say the first thing that happened is I recognized that I was not feeling fulfilled in my job anymore. So I was the director of finance at a university foundation. So it was a pretty high level, like it was a high job, like working pretty much right under the president and the vice president of my department. And I was in meetings with the president of the university, and I would be just, I could not hold back my emotions. And I'm like, something isn't right. Yes, I know, but this was almost 5 years later. I think it was, well, I for sure was thinking I got to leave this job like 4 years later, or even 3 years. Like I was like, something is wrong. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And I remember like the biggest shift I made was leaving that job because it was a place where I was holding all of the insurance for our family and all the benefits, and like it was a really good, and everybody was like, well, everybody else would want this job, so why wouldn't you want it? Like
Right.
nobody would want me to leave, and my husband didn't want me to leave, and the people in the office thought everything's going to fall apart if you leave. So I felt obligated to stay. So I stayed about 3 years too long. That's what happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the biggest change I made was I left my job. And that was hard. That was a really hard, another thing to process through.
More
Of
grief.
doing something against everybody else's wishes was really difficult for me because I was conditioned to be a people pleaser growing up. My mom is one too. And so, no, you should do what everybody else thinks you should do. And
I'm
that was really,
curious. I want to continue. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm
no.
curious if there was a thought that, oh, it must be because you're grieving. You must be out of your mind. Like you must not be thinking right. Did you get any of that?
I think maybe my husband and my family thought that. I don't think at work they thought that, but I think, my family probably thought, maybe you're just not over your thing, or whatever. But really, I just felt so unfulfilled all of a sudden. Like I had this different take on life, and I was like,
Mhm.
I had this deep feeling in my body, which is weird to say because I've been such a mind brain person. I'm a CPA. I like logic and math and figures and spreadsheets. So for me to feel this thing in my body that I am not supposed to be here. Oh, and it felt like that for like at least a year, probably 2 years. Like, I don't know, I'm supposed to be doing something else. I had this pull. You should quit. You should quit. You should quit. It's like a whisper in the back of your head,
Right.
but your logical mind keeps saying that's ridiculous. No, why would you ever do that? And so it took me a couple years to get to a place where no, actually I am quitting, but that was really hard. But it was the biggest change I made. And then from there, I think things opened up for me. I wrote some books and I started a coaching business, and I don't know, it just all seemed like, oh, this is the path I'm going to go on, and it felt really good to me.
Nice. Did the book help you? Was that kind of the shedding away of the healing process? Was
I
writing?
think so because I wrote the book. I started the book in February of 2017, and I quit my job in August of 2016. So it took me a little while to kind of process through some things. Like, what am I doing next? I don't know. I had no idea what to do next. But this book idea came to me, and I wrote my book and I published it in May of 2017. And that kind of writing a book, there's a process of healing even through that. Like I felt like I was already to a point where I could actually tell my story and say, oh, and I've already made these changes in my life. But yet, even writing it down was even more like healing. It just
Right.
felt like so like, oh, I had to get this out. Like it was bugging me. I had to get it out. I had to get it out. So yeah, that was even a body thing. I felt that my body, there's this story that needs to be told, and I have to get, you know, yeah, that was so amazing.
It's so
Yeah,
interesting when it is the body speaking, because
yeah,
I know in my own life I've tried to like douse it with water. Like I'm trying to kill this fire, and like you got, especially talking about all this stuff, right? I'm like out here in the South and this is not cool to be some of the stuff I talk about. And I'm like, I just can't not. It's just who I am. Like I
yeah.
don't know how. It's almost like demystifying humanity. Like this is humanity. Like this happens like a lot.
Yeah.
and divorce happens and murder happen, so much stuff happens. And we're just, as long as we're in resistance, we will suffer. Like we're
Yeah.
here in this game, we're in the ring, we're in the
Mhm.
arena. We're part of it. We can resist it or we can
Yeah.
allow it. Like we can go along with it and we can grow and evolve, or we can try to keep things tight and we can suffer.
Yeah. And I think there was a thought I had.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, that when you were saying something, I had a thought. I'll probably come back up. Anyways, you
Well,
said something and it just brought something up for me. Okay.
it's that, I was really being able to like there's this like supposed to be like this rule or this truth or this guarantee
Yeah.
it's clearly not like it. And it could be once, like I'm saying, the perception of mortality, once you've faced different things. Like this is a big topic for me, and I probably should say why, like I can, relate with this. But my brother hung himself at 20 years old. My son's best friend, it was a year this week that he hung
Yeah.
himself, and it's like these are like stories that are really close to home. And a very close
Yeah.
friend of mine, it's just happened over and over and over. And I'm saying we have a really high rate. And then I myself as a teenager survived a suicide attempt, which I was
Yeah.
completely pissed about. Like I had no idea, and it wasn't anything anyone else's fault. Or there
Right.
was like, if I had parents trying to figure out why I done that, there was no way they were going to figure that out, because in
Yeah.
my mind and in the emptiness and loneliness that I was feeling as the person, like I was just like, I literally wrote a letter that I was going back to heaven. Like it was really
Yeah.
clean. It was simple,
Yeah.
and it was like, I'm just coming home. Like, check it
Yeah.
out. Had enough here. Not what
That's
I'm
it.
doing. I was like
Yeah.
so innocent. And
Yeah.
so when it happens here, like we had someone recently, a 30-year-old vet, like we're like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. She has two little kids. She had everything going for her. Her friends were trying to figure it out. And I was like, guys, it is not logical. You will not figure it out. There's just
Right.
something. There's just this, there's four things that we do when we're in pain. We process through it, which we now have the tools for it, right?
Yeah.
Many
Yep.
people do not. You
Yeah.
process through it. You blame. You
Mm.
put it out. So you try to
Mhm.
shift it off. You avoid it. You eat.
Yeah.
You hide from it.
I did that for a while.
Yeah,
Eating for
we call
sure.
that buffering.
Yeah.
You torture someone else. Like in other words, you take your pain and you like
Yeah.
poke it to someone else.
Like you're angry, right?
That's right.
Like you just throw it out there.
Yeah, you like puke it all over, or
Mhm.
you exit. It's the only four ways I know to get out of
Mm.
pain.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those four ways that no matter how I dial it in and look at it, and I just reached that point. There was just no, I don't know why. I was like, and it was very innocent is the word I keep wanting to say,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and then I didn't realize it till many years later that I was angry about it. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why I was so careless with my life, those
Yeah.
teenage years and through all of that stuff,
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think experiencing the depths of mortality in that way, that literally I checked out, you could say, even
Mm.
though it didn't go all the way through, but in my mind, I completely checked out that the rest is langyap. You know what I'm like, LAGNIAPPE, langyap. It's like
We
bonus.
have a restaurant called Lanyap
I
in
have a
our
newspaper
town.
called langyap. Yeah, it's like extra.
Okay.
It's like,
Um,
it's like bonus. So it's like I've already
yeah.
survived death. Like what more
Yeah.
can I be afraid of?
And so what I was going to say, and now it came back for me, is the most freeing thing that happened for me in my healing journey was to accept that Trevor died and I don't need to know the exact reason why. But when you keep thinking, oh, I need to know why. I need to know why. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't, like suicide should never happen. Like when I was thinking all those things, it just kept me stuck in pain and suffering. But when I like let that go, I released it. I'm like, you know what? I'll probably never know exactly why. I do believe when I die, I'll probably know the answer. And that's okay. It's fine. Maybe I'll get to know the
Beautiful.
answer then, but
Beautiful.
I had to release that need to know, and I had to accept that it happened and allow the fact that yes, it happened and maybe there's a reason for it. And I did want it not to be in vain. Like I wanted to be able to use my experience to somehow move forward and expand my life,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to help other women do too. It's
Yeah.
like take that and transform your pain and, you know, turn it into something else.
Yeah. And I believe all souls come together for experience the way it is, and that's probably a great point for you to say that, because I would imagine that is the sticking point for most parents.
Yeah.
even
We
friends.
want to
My
know
son's having a
why.
hard time, with his friend. He was like, I should have been
Yeah.
there. I should have known. I should
Yeah.
like he was like, it was his best friend. They did everything together. They roped hard,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's
It
tough.
is tough.
Like, because I
Yeah.
know it's always rolling in his mind. He's always questioning and he's always thinking about it.
Of course.
So you can
Yeah, you
imagine.
feel like if you would have said something different then, or
Yep,
if you would have
exactly.
done that, or it's the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing. I would
Yep.
have done this, I could have done that, I should have done this. And then you don't, not only for yourself, but then you think of all the other people, what they should have been doing, what they could have done differently. It's like, it's a
Why
whole,
didn't anybody see this? It's so
yeah,
on you. Yeah. I know he
exactly.
got in his truck and drove straight home like 12 hours. I was like dying on the other end, because I was
Yeah,
like, oh my God, he's not going to pay attention. He was like devastated and he
yeah,
wouldn't like stop. He's like, I cannot sit here and wait for an airplane. And
yeah,
so it involves everyone, right?
it
It involves
does.
the whole community, was shaken up by it,
It
such a.
does, yes, for sure.
So what would you I'm looking at Tracy's comment here. She said, I lost my daughter in 2006 to suicide. I repressed grief and ended up with serious health issues. And I'm reading it because that is such an important topic. It was the
It
same with
is.
me. That's why I had 15 surgeries, why I had so many health issues, because the thing I was trying to check out from as a kid, I didn't heal. I didn't know. Right. So I started getting physically sick, and actually my like healing came through my physical healing. Like, I had to figure it out. I was so sick and I was so depressed. And it took many, many years of weaving through that. But your body it will tell the story. Your physical body will tell the story. You will materialize your mental and emotional thoughts, your mental and emotional status or health, or however you want to say it. And so the stories that I had running in my head, you had positive stories running in your head. I did not. That was
Yeah,
not planted in my
yeah,
mind. Back then, anyway, so I materialized it in my physical world. And this is what we're seeing. This is why life coaching is so important. The tools that we
yeah.
use to help people to bring that awareness of what our thoughts are actually doing. Our thoughts, and not even more than our thoughts, is our beliefs. And the difference is, you can think something, but when you feel it, then it locks the belief. And then
Right.
you're like, well, it must be true. I feel it. It must be true. I feel it. Right. And then we get stuck
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
story.
And that's the one thing I love, is that I get to believe whatever I want.
Yeah.
I did not learn that until I went through this journey of healing. I was
Right.
like, oh, I get to believe what I want. Oh, I don't have to believe what anybody else thinks about suicide. I don't have to believe what they think happened to Trevor when he died by suicide. Because
Right.
believe me, everybody will tell you what they think. And it was just so freeing for me to go, that's what they think. That doesn't have to be what I think. And that I don't have to believe any of that. I can make up my own story about it and believe whatever I want and whatever serves me. And that was so amazing.
And it's
It was
true. It's your truth,
freeing.
right?
Yeah. It's
Truth
so
is truth is
freeing.
only perception. It's
Yeah.
truth the eye of the beholder. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it is.
I know. But some
No,
people get
belief
stuck in
beliefs.
that, that stigma thing. Some
Mhm.
people get stuck there where they're like, oh, well, the Bible says this about suicide,
Yep.
which I don't even know what it says, but so and so said that, and the preacher said that, and that other person thinks that. And like, we look to other people to figure out
That's
what we should believe
actually what
about.
kept me alive, is because I heard
Yeah.
that, and then I was really stuck because I was like, "Oh, now I know better. I can't do it. Like, I really can't do it.
Yeah.
Now what am I supposed to do?" So I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
it's not enough to experience hell. Now I'm experiencing purgatory, like right here, right
Yeah.
now." And I remember the moment I was
Mm.
relieved of it, and
Yeah.
it's just awareness. Awareness is the healer, and that's what you
Yeah.
receive. Just the awareness is you get to choose how you tell the story,
Yeah.
your
I
story.
Great. And you get to make it work for however you want it to work in your life. Like, that's what I think is so fabulous about it. It can keep you stuck and feeling sad the rest of your life, or you can take it and you can make something different, and you get to choose. I tell people that you don't have to be happy. That's fine. It's your choice. And some people want to use that to stay stuck, and that's fine. But that's just not my choice. And I want to work with the women who choose to want to move forward and to find their purpose and happiness and take that pain and turn it into something else.
Yeah, we
It's
always
just so awesome to me when we do that.
have the opportunity to transform it. I find like the environment is such a big deal of when, like, that's really why I wanted to have you on more than
Mhm.
anything else, is wherever you're, like you're saying, you were in a small town, you didn't really, hear about resources. And so you happen to find them. I say that's by the grace of God
Yeah.
that you happen to find them, because that's your journey to go and teach this, and even be
Yeah.
here available for someone today, because the resources are not here either, the resources. But if we have online now, and we have this
Yeah.
opportunity, and so you are now a resource. And so we have just
Yeah.
exposed and
Yeah.
educated, of
Yeah.
something that you didn't know and you didn't find, but we now have the opportunity for other people to find it. And so I wouldn't even say, because I used to think like they just don't want it, but I honestly, I was like, no, I think everybody wants it. They just don't know they
Yeah.
can have it. Their
Maybe.
capacity to believe
Yes.
that they can
Maybe.
have it all, that they can
Yeah.
have like a great marriage, a healed heart, a healed
Yeah.
body, that I didn't know I could have. I tried. I looked everywhere. I spent thousands of dollars through. I mean, I went to every kind of doctor you can imagine. I did all these certifications to try to figure it out. I honestly, it was just not in my psyche. It wasn't in my. It wasn't in the generational pattern that was passed to me. It wasn't in my environment. There was no way I would have gotten the resource, and so
Yeah.
I choose to tell the story of it's the journey where I found the resources.
Right. And I think, well, maybe this happened so that I could do, like, this was my life's work for some reason, but I wouldn't have found this unless I had experienced that, like something about that. And it's a weird thing to think, but I'm totally over there. My husband, not so much, but I don't know. I have so much gratitude for myself for wanting to go somewhere and go somewhere better and choose to do something different than anybody would think I should be doing. I mean, life coaching sometimes can be woo woo, right? It feels sometimes a little energy woo woo stuff. Believe me, I grew up in a very conservative religion, a very conservative household, and I think some of them think I'm just a little nuts. I'm
Oh,
like,
for sure.
yeah, but
I
you
am
don't
for sure.
understand.
Yeah, I'm for sure a witch here. I promise. Like I'm Bible Belt, Southern
I mean,
Central Louisiana. Like I teach yoga, I do meditation, I
yeah,
do hypnotherapy. Like this is not cool. You are not safe. It's like we got to worry about you. And I'm like, actually, it's what
yeah.
it took. It's really what it took.
It's
I was so
expansive though. I feel like I've learned so much about myself and my spirit. I recognize there's a difference now between religion and spirituality. I'm
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like I have a spirit, and like I have just like blossomed into this part of life, and I just want to pass it on. Like I'm here to tell you it's possible. And I think the biggest thing people need to know is it's possible for them too. Like you were saying, that if you could see the possibility, that's why I had to immerse myself into a lot of success stories, because I was like, okay, those people went through this, that, and the other thing. Might not have been my specific trauma, but they went through a lot of things too. And look at what they're doing. They're able to. So it's like getting yourself to believe in the possibility, I think, is the first step.
Yep.
If you
Yeah, you
don't
have
believe
to
it's
know, you have to have
possible,
something to grab onto to know it's
yeah, if you don't think it's possible, then it probably, you can create that for yourself. Then it won't
and
be possible.
the way the mind works is when something happens, it goes just like with the virus right now, it goes to the past. It goes to look like, oh, when has this happened before? What did we do then? What like it
Right.
and you didn't have like you didn't know. Like
Yeah.
what- right? There was like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And
Right.
so now with planting a seed, now whenever they hear their mind goes to, oh, wait, there is something else, right? But we
Yeah.
have to show it evidence because it's always going to err the side on its patterns, its behaviors.
Oh yeah.
That Epri,
Those
it's
deep,
always gonna, and it can only
yeah,
think of one thing at a time.
the deep work of Joe Dispenza. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
I love that work, but it's like I've been learning so much about, oh my gosh, it's in our body. Like
Yes.
those experiences and memories, that's how our body is showing up. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, there's no
know?
way I would know what I know now if I wouldn't have physically, emotionally, mentally, the whole story, like experienced all of it.
It's everything.
And
Yeah.
that's really where I got the name Integrative Life Coach from. It's like we
Yeah.
integrate the mind, the body, like physically, right? Mental, emotional,
Yeah.
physical, and then we embody it in spirituality. We are soul essence in a bodysuit,
Yeah.
like literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just haven't been taught
Yeah.
to embody it and drop down. So people go
Yeah.
into meditation to try to go away into the heavens. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Mm.
Here. Like you're lucky
Yeah.
to be in the bodysuit. There's other
Yeah.
entities floating around like Abraham Hicks trying to jump in people's bodies to have a conversation, right? We're actually in a body. Like we have a body and
Yeah.
we're divine soul essence. We are part of creation. Like we're
Yeah.
having an experience the way we look, the way we smell, the way we show up, the experiences we've had. We're so lucky to be here. Like we probably kicked some people
Right.
out the line to get here. Like
Right. The
seriously, right?
gratitude thing, right?
You
The
know,
gratitude, like
yes, if we could
being
look at
living
it
in
that way.
gratitude is so powerful. Yeah.
And Joe Dispenza says, like, why wait for the crisis to create the transformation? Why
Yeah.
wait for life to fall apart? Why
Yeah.
wait for things to happen? Why wait for the diagnosis? You know, it's like you could just choose to change now. I feel like
Yes.
the integrative work that I do and teach is for sure right along with what he's saying and doing mentally.
Yeah.
We doing it in the whole aspect of it, like the integration approach. And that's this whole show is about that, those who have done it. And then all I'm doing is helping, like having the conversation
Yeah.
about those who have done it, who want to help other people,
Yeah.
right? It's
It's
like
so
that kind of
awesome. I know.
fun.
It's fun
So
talking about it.
yeah. And I think also knowing that you're not alone. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like we have a community, we have a
Yeah.
space that we can have this woo conversation, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't,
Yeah.
I, I'm not quite sure what people mean when they say woo. I think I know, but the ones I've
I'm not
heard that
sure
say
either,
that's
but
kind of woo, like they're into the law of attraction. So I'm like, there's nothing more woo than the law of attraction. Like that is
yeah.
literally an entity. Like
Yeah.
that's given those messages. So if we
Yeah.
could drop all of the judgment, all of the labels,
Yeah.
all of the comparison,
Yeah.
what's right, wrong, how long you should grieve, how life should be after, if someone should take their life or not take it's if
Yeah.
we could drop all of that, what would be left? Experience,
And love, like I think love is the most
connection.
powerful thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just love and gratitude for this life we're living and just embracing all the things about it, all the things, including
The
losing
pain.
people,
Yeah. The
the
loss.
pain. Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually letting go of the attachment of life and death.
Yeah. I feel so free. Like I'm not afraid of death at all. But maybe before Trevor died, I didn't recognize any of that. But after he died, I'm like, yeah, you know, nothing, none of it. Like when people die, yeah, they die. Like I've already been through that. I can experience it again, and I know how to handle it. And we all have our own life journey on this earth. I can't control my kids. Ooh, that was a big one for me. I felt like I thought I was in more control of my kids' lives than I am. And
Mhm.
to let that go, that, oh, I'm not in control. I'm here to be their mom while we're here. But I can't really control when they die, I just can't control any of it. That was hard as a control person, you know, but
Yeah.
my life has opened up, giving up control, like releasing control. It's just amazing, you know?
Yeah. There's a big
So,
attachment to the kid's supposed to like it's a reflection of you and it goes back like
yeah.
if you can let that go and just be in experience with
Yeah.
the child because
Oh, yeah.
they're not ours, we're not theirs, we're not like no one belongs to no one, we're actually just all here having an experience. We
I
happen to be
know.
in the same house or the same
Yeah.
genetic pool or
Yeah.
however that happens. But the beauty is
Yeah.
when we can come into that like that real the soul essence and realize like we're just having an experience together of connection, of community, of expression, and of
Exactly.
contribution. And that would be the question is how can we continue to contribute to the world, right? We don't have to stop. We don't have to stop.
No, no. I'm so grateful. Thank you for inviting me
You're
for this
welcome.
conversation because this is fun.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, I'm not doing it unless it's fun. And we're
Yeah.
off the cuff here. We're just going to do it all live. I'm not doing
Yeah.
all that editing stuff. It's raw.
Yeah.
It's real. It's real
That's
people
awesome.
having a real life when it's real hard.
Yeah.
So I'm going to like cut off the recording. And if anyone
Yeah.
wants to ask questions or you want to come on live and speak with us, then we're going to give you that opportunity. Thank you guys that are joining YouTube live. I'm going to stop the live stream now. Oh, wait. Where can they find you? I'm going to put in the show notes, but
Okay.
tell them what the
Yeah.
book is, where can you get the
Okay, well,
information?
let me just show you this book. This is on Amazon, so you can find me on Amazon. That became a bestseller on Amazon. But also, RebeccaTervo.com is my website. I think the best place to go is there. And then I'm on Facebook. I have a page, and there's a lot of videos I have on my Facebook page, and people have
Perfect.
told me how helpful those are. So I just like to tell you that, you know.
Is it your name, the Facebook page?
Yep. Rebecca Lynn Tervo is my Facebook page.
And who,
LYNN.
We'll put that in
Yeah.
the show notes. But the book is called Shattered, and you can get it on
Yes.
Amazon. Now
Yes.
you also host retreats, right? Healing retreats, and are you
Yes.
still doing that?
Yes, and I host in-person retreats, and right now I'm running an online. I call it an online retreat, but it's a 12-week group. So I am so excited about that, and I'm going to be offering those more now. 12-week online groups. I think they're so fantastic.
So those who are feeling like they are alone, you are not.
Yeah.
Just know that there are resources out there
Yeah.
to reach out. All right, I'm going to
Yeah.
stop the live stream.